Hey, what's going on, everybody? I'm Dorian, and you're listening to Highway to Scale. It's a podcast in which we explore the ins and outs of business success and where we cover topics like validating business ideas, exploring different management styles, building products, launching them on the market, raising capital, and scaling your business. If this is your first time listening to Highway to Scale, click that subscribe button and add us to your podcast playlist so you get notified when we publish new interviews. And if you want to be a guest on the show, get in touch with me on LinkedIn. In today's episode, I'm joined by James, who is the CEO of Rentals United, the premier global channel management solution designed for medium to large short-term rental managers. By providing efficient and reliable tools, data, and expertise, Rentals United enables its clients to optimize their business model and power growth. Over the years, it became the enterprise software of choice, and it's used by a majority of the world's top 20 property managers. In short, Rentals United is all about giving its clients more bookings with less work. As for James, he's a big advocate of using technology to make the complex more simple, and he has over 20 years of experience within the travel industry, specifically within the vacation rental sector. As a serial entrepreneur, James first entered the vacation rental market as a co-founder of a leading global listing website, but a keen interest in technology led him into travel tech, where he co-founded Rentals United. In this podcast, James will tell us more about the current state of the rental market, the importance of focusing on solving user issues, how his company helped their customers during the COVID-19 pandemic, and why sales the lifeblood of every company. So let's cut the intro and let's jump right into the episode to see what James can teach us about building a business.
Great. Thanks,
James.
for inviting me.
It's so great to have you on the podcast.
Good pitch, by the way.
I mean, it's from your website, so you've done it good.
Sure.
Yeah. So let's start from the beginning. Can you tell me more about the company? How did it all start?
I mean, I've been in the vacation rental sector for probably 16, 17 years. So I had a website that was very similar to Airbnb, pre-Airbnb. I moved to Barcelona from Italy, set up a kind of more secure business here, and Airbnb came around and suddenly things were starting to get difficult. They had lots of money, big funding. Our market share was dwindling. We made a couple of bad decisions, especially from a SEO perspective, and got a call from a competitor, a direct competitor. And we met up in Poland and we started talking. He invited a number of other companies around, saying, "Look, what are we going to do? We've got these guys over from America, lots of money. We need to compete with them." And at the end, it was 4 direct competitors creating Rentals United, which was originally a property sharing platform. So, I have properties in Rio, you have properties in Paris. Let's start sharing commission, inventory. We're all hunting the same people. And we realized quite quickly that, one, there was an opportunity to open up to the rest of the market. And secondly, to enable property managers to kind of automate their distribution across a wider selection of channels. Because previously, it was really, look, I've got a booking from booking.com. I need to log into Expedia or Airbnb and upload the booking in those, or at least block the dates. Channel manager had existed in the hotel sector for a while then. But we were certainly one of the first in VR.
So what did that process of pivoting your company look like? Was it difficult to do?
I mean, I suppose fundamentally it's all pretty easy to kind of set up. I mean, one of my partners is a developer, and he's based in Poland. So getting access then to cheaper IT resource was much easier than it is right now. we had already the framework of a platform, and it was really just a case of building it out from there. I set up the commercial side from my basement in actually this house where I'm living right now. And we built the commercial side on getting interns, basically. We were bootstrapping the whole business for probably 3 years. And I mean, I wouldn't say it was easy, but at the time we were offering free access. We wanted to get traction. We wanted to get volume of properties and bookings coming through the platform. And, you know, in the end, we realized that we could only take it so far with our own money.
So looking at your company today, what makes it better than your competitors, let's say?
I mean, we're in a slightly unique position, I think, in our industry. One, we don't have many direct competitors. There's a few in the US that really focus on the US market. There's one in Holland that's probably more geared towards very large, more enterprise property managers. And we're the one that kind of sits in the middle that has more sort of a global reach. What makes us different? I mean, our focus is, one, we're SaaS based. So we charge a monthly fee per month per property. And that seems to really fit into the budgeting that our customers want to have. Because we have a wider cross-section of customers, we have a wider distribution of channels. So especially in Europe, it's just not Airbnb and Booking.com. There are a lot of local champions that can offer you access to a more kind of local market. And we focus more on data and providing ROI advice, really kind of, you know, what's the data that we're seeing? How can you make a better, how can you make more money out of the same kind of reservation? And so it's a bit sort of revenue management. It's a bit sort of content improvement, top content quality, and really focusing on return of investment, basically.
Yeah, I understand. So how do you make money when it comes to, you know, your clients? You said you're a SaaS and you have a monthly subscription. What kind of clients bring you the most revenue?
Well, per property per month, it will be the smaller customers because they pay a higher amount per property. But in terms of overall revenue, it's certainly the bigger property managers out there. So we made a pivot in 2018 to move away from long tail that we tried to hit and failed miserably at. And we really realized that it's the bigger property managers that need that level of specialism. Because for us, it's not just about offering them access to lots of different channels. It's really being able to be part of their business and extending ourselves and really aligning with their overall strategy.
Mm-hmm. So when I talk to CEOs of SaaS companies, a lot of them say to me that sales is basically the most important aspect of their business when it comes to acquiring new leads. Yeah. Is it true with your company too?
I mean, sales is probably the most important part of every business. Otherwise, you're not going to really survive long, are you? I mean, I would say from our perspective, it's sales and it's obviously product development. We're a product development business. We're a software house, more or less, I think. Sales is crucial. But I think that also in line with that, it's marketing. So we focus not only on driving leads and opportunities into the business through marketing from social, organic, paid, email marketing. I mean, we're kind of doing the whole lot. But equally from a more outbound, more aggressive tactic. So we have sales guys calling up potential partners, networking, going to events, all this kind of stuff. Yeah, I mean, it's the lifeblood of our business, and without our sales, then there'll be no new revenue coming into the business.
Yeah, understandable. So What's your sales team structure like?
It's relatively simple. We've dabbled at a number of different models. We've gone from the BDR and sales, and now we've reverted actually quite recently back to just sales. You know, it's been interesting the last 14 months during the pandemic. We've realized that we used to have previously probably 50% of our business was coming through our partner network. So many of our partners are property management software companies. So our property managers or our customers would be using some kind of operational platform to help them manage their business on a daily basis. We would be offering those PMSs access to our channels. So they would come from the PMS into Rentals United, and we would start distributing out to get more reservations. And there would probably be 20% would be on enterprise, and the remainder would be manual customers that would be small enough to want to use a very simplistic PMS, which is what we've got. We don't kind of confess it is a PMS, but it can be used as such. And over the past 40 months, that 30% has just disappeared. It seems now that 80% are now using a PMS. So, you know, we're going from having almost direct access to the end user, the property manager, more into how are we developing our relationships with all of our partners. And that now has become key. And, you know, we started creating integrations to many of the PMSs in the market when we first started. We knew that to get access to the bigger property manager and the more professional property manager, they'd be using some kind of tech anyway. And we're relatively a kind of a niche product. And so we knew we had to integrate, but it's so much more than just having a connection between the PMS and Rentals United. It's really more about how can you benefit each other? How can you strategically align? How can you create KPIs together that you really track? You know, how are you going to create a win-win situation together? And it's not that easy. It requires, you know, dedication, money, resource on both parts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's all about building those strong partnerships, because that makes everything easier.
Absolutely.
So when we go through the history of Rentals United, can you tell me about some of the more impactful milestones? Let's say some of the things you as a CEO and before then COO did good, and what were maybe some of the mistakes that you made?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's been a few mistakes. I think probably our biggest mistake was not listening to our customers as much as we should have. We've always been I suppose the nature of Rentals United, because it's quite a specialized product, is really geared towards your more sophisticated property manager, the ones that really not just look at connections, but they look far deeper. And we felt that we could create product that would really fit to, we call them the long tail, which is your owners, your typical kind of Airbnb host. And not only do they use a different type of product, but they also react in a completely different way. They act more like a consumer than they do a business. And so that was our first mistake. We really underestimated what they wanted and how would they interact with the business. So, you know, we were spending a lot of money and bringing them in, and they were churning within 3 to 6 months. That was number one. Second were, again, just, I suppose, product decisions that we've made. You know, we're great at, or we have been great at developing product and not so good at going through that reiteration of updates, improving, listening. You know, that's that kind of loop that you should have when you focus really on product. And we've only become more product focused over the last maybe 2 to 3 years, identifying the real key questions that our customers want and what sort of improvements you can make and how you can really develop it. In terms of, I suppose, milestones, certainly pivoting to become a SaaS business. We were a business that generated revenue through transactions. So every booking that came in, we were earning a commission. We pivoted to become a SaaS business in 2018, and thankfully we did. This enabled us to get through the last 14 months relatively unscathed, which was great. It really fits into our market, we believe. And again, I suppose another pivot will be moving away from that long tail towards your more enterprise towards your more enterprise level customers, and more focus on integrations rather than developing tools for our smaller customers.
Let's talk a little bit more about your funding. You've gone through a couple of rounds. What I wanted to know, what were some of your goals when you decided, okay, we want to get outside capital? What kind of investors were you looking to attract?
It kind of, it really varies on the level of position you're in. And, we had some, or we still have some very understanding and generous angels, who are still board members. And so, that was always great up to a point, but there was always something missing as we started to grow and get bigger. You need a kind of deeper understanding, or you need advice from companies that have a deeper understanding about really what you do. Running a SaaS business is very different from running other businesses. There's a big focus on metrics, on making sure that your SaaS metrics are working. And so, we also wanted to have a company that had a deeper influence within our own industry, or at least in travel anyway. So our Series A was a combination of two companies. One was a Swedish VC that had a lot of experience working with SaaS businesses, and they've shown us they provided a lot of help in terms of how we can really understand, fine tune, and make the most out of the data that we're seeing. And secondly, the other VC was more from a travel base. So what are the opportunities we are seeing within the market? They were very good at being able to benchmark and challenge particular ideas that we had, because they knew the industry so much more. And in fact, strangely enough, we'll be looking again. We'll be going through another round, probably at least within the next 12 months. And now we're thinking about a completely different partner, someone more strategic.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. What do you think about the thought that some CEOs say, when you're just starting out, when you're in your Series A, don't look at the amount of money that someone is willing to invest in you, but look at the people who are behind that money, if they can teach you how to grow your company?
Sure. But I think the money is important as well. I mean, there has to be a balance between the two. I think that the valuation you get as a founder is going to be vital with every single stage that you go through, and getting value for money and fighting for that is really important. Yes, I mean, there are lots of people that can open doors for you. And if they can open it up, then that is really great. But how many investors out there can really create that level of return? I haven't come across any, but I'm sure there are. I'm sure they're out there. But I would always think that there's a balance between the two.
Okay, great. So when it comes to you as a CEO, can you tell me more about your management style? When it comes to, let's say, building teams, hiring people.
Sure. Businesses are only as great as the sum of the people. So definitely, as you grow and you have more money, you really understand what benefit good people can bring to the business. So, try and afford the best that you can, and really understand the positions that you really need. For my management style, I'm definitely a macro style. I think that people need to be empowered. I mean, I don't really like the word, but I think that, they need to be independent. They need to understand, and they need to be able to make their own decisions, and be challenged. But equally, I'm quite very happy for people to challenge me. I think overall, it needs to be people that really understand the overall vision of the company, and they're able to share and empower that vision within people within their teams. I mean, so we've dabbled at a number of different methodologies within RU. One, we run a agile and Scrum-based process in our product development, and we've tried to simulate that within the rest of the competencies within the company, which has been not as easy as I thought it was going to be. So that would be cross collaboration within each groups. We're almost like a conveyor belt of companies, departments within the company, right? So you've got as product is first, marketing, sales, onboarding, growth, account management, renewals, right? And it kind of, goes in this big circle continuously. And it really requires a lot of knowledge share between the two. So, we're really trying to encourage that. And we've really thought that the agile system would be able to, you could apply that quite easily to the business side. It's not always quite the case. But, it's really about making people feel really super responsible for what they're doing, and that they are overall really understanding what the company's objectives are, and that they can all make a difference to the overall company goal.
Yeah. And when it comes to you specifically, when it comes to your work, what are you focused on the most? Do you get involved in, operational day-to-day stuff?
Yeah, I have to. I mean, we had a COO. Well, I was COO before I became CEO, and I had a COO for a period of time, and he left, and I didn't replace him because I didn't feel that we needed that sort of position at the time. So yeah, I'm still involved, and in fact, I'm involved in a big project from an operational perspective right now. But ideally, my focus should be on people, money, and strategy. I mean, that's the ideal focus. But it doesn't always. It's not always the case. I mean, we're kind of growing from being a startup into the kind of the SMB size. So there's still quite a hands-on feel. I like to get involved. I like talking to customers. I like talking to people, really finding out what's going on. And I think as a CEO, you need to understand every aspect of the business.
Yeah. You mentioned before that, getting feedback from your customers was something that you didn't do enough. What kind of a process do you have now for getting customer feedback?
Well, we send out reviews. We do an NPS. We talk to them directly. From a product perspective, we obviously have account managers talk to our customers on an ongoing basis, and that is used as a feedback into product. But over the last couple of months, I've started talking to customers as well. So I set up a 15-minute chat and sit down and listen to them. And, it's amazing what you hear. I think that we can not only be arrogant in terms of what we think about what we're developing, but also we're so involved in it on an ongoing day-to-day basis that you sometimes neglect to understand what pains your customers are going through. And, I've had 4 conversations with 4 different customers, and each conversation has been completely different, but each one has been as eye-opening as the previous one. So it's been quite interesting.
Yeah, that's a great thing you said, because a lot of times you are so involved with your product, with your company, you lose track of what your customers really need. You lose track of their needs, and you start in a sort of building that product for yourself instead of for them.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, we've definitely gone down that road before, and then suddenly you realize that you've spent money and time and resource and in a product that no one wants to really use.
Yeah.
So it you learn, I suppose, and we're really starting to learn so much more about how our customers are using things, not only from a partner but a customer, and I mean it's crucial for your survival, in my opinion.
Yeah, that is true. One of the things that also interests me whenever I'm talking to SaaS CEOs is, what are some of the biggest challenges of building a SaaS company? Where are things breaking?
Well, I mean, the biggest challenge for the beginning is the money side, because you tend to have a really high cost curve, and the returns are really low because your customers are paying you less money on an ongoing basis. So really, the key is volume of customers that start building up over a period of time. So you normally find that it takes between 6 to 12 months before you really start to see a nice kind of growth curve and your costs start to come down. So that's a challenge. Managing the money is a big key. Second will be churn. Retaining your customers, retaining your revenue is the one thing that can really erode a SaaS business. It kills you because it kills you in terms of your long-term growth, and it kills you for your short-term. And so, we're in a challenging position because much of, we don't just develop product. We also are very dependent on all of our partners. We have 80 odd channels. We have 50 PMSs. We're running concurrently around 250 API connections, and all of these can have an impact on our client satisfaction. Whilst there could be a problem that's being created by a channel, the client is always going to blame us because we're the ones that are really being responsible for the reservation. So, that's been super challenging, and being able to really, work on processes, work on improving integrations, having a better relationship and knowledge share between us and our partners, but equally getting the client to really understand that it's not that easy, that we are doing something highly complex, and that there needs to be a little bit level of understanding. But I completely understand. We manage reservations, which is the lifeblood of the industry, and if the reservations are not coming in right, then it's going to hurt. And our market is full of very family-sized businesses, highly fragmented, and so one or two bookings extra a week or not can make a really big impact on their bottom line.
Yeah.
So, I can get it. I really understand.
Yeah, basically, you're on the front line. Whatever happens, when it's good, when it's bad.
Yeah.
Can you tell me a little bit more about the rental market, especially now? We're in the pandemic. Everything was shutting down. Hotels were not working. Restaurants were not working. I suppose it's the same with smaller rentals.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to pretend it hasn't been difficult. From March 2020, we went from creating 5,000 bookings a day to 0 night to day. And we also had 95% cancellations of those bookings that were coming up within the first 3 months, right? So, our customers were crying out for help. They were bleeding badly. Not only just the big ones, but also the small ones. So, they've suffered, but it's worked in our favor. If you start looking at vacation rentals compared to hotels, it's been a bench to for them to be able to get further ahead than hotels. The recovery's been a lot quicker. People have wanted to stay in apartments and houses. They want that space away from people. They want that seclusion. There's been a big movement of people that are now working from home. They're thinking, why am I staying in the center of the city when I can go and, work in the middle of nowhere in the countryside and have a completely different experience with my family. And so we've seen a big movement of longer term bookings. And, this had a big impact on even companies like Airbnb, who were making around 25% of their reservations of bookings that were over 21 days, which is a big thing for them. And so there's been this, and this hasn't dropped. So there's still a trend of longer term bookings. We've also seen an emergence of our customers that would probably traditionally call themselves short-term rental property managers that are now calling themselves letting agents. So they're moving more into mid and long term. So, they not only do short, they do mid-term, which is 30 days plus, and they do long-term, which is probably 12 months plus. And then we're also looking at long-term moving into short-term because they've got lots of properties that are empty and they want to make money out of it. And now because of the ease of use with the technology, they're able to start to get to grasp of how they can make money out of the short-term rental space. So there's a lot of convergence going on. And, we're great. We're in a great position because we're sort of standing in the middle. I mean, fundamentally, all we do is distribute and manage data. So it doesn't have to be a property for short-term rental. It could be long, could be short, it could be mid. So it's definitely an interesting time for us.
So what was going through your head when you saw that drop from 5,000 daily bookings to zero? I mean, you had to do something with your company because it was a difficult time. What were some of the things you started?
I mean, interestingly enough, we were going through some funding just before. We were aiming to head towards profitability, so we were going through a bridge loan, and our shareholder said, "No way." So you've got to manage this on your own. So we basically started all the KPIs that we were tracking. Forget that, went out the window. We ended up looking at what money we could save immediately. We set up a plan based on short-term survival, so cash, what was coming into the business on a daily basis, what were we collecting from our customers, how much money we could put aside to help our customers financially. So we had a lot of our customers saying to us, look, no bookings, I can't pay you. Can you defer our contract? Can you give me discount? Can you give me periods for free? And so we set aside and said, right, okay, we've got X amount of money to be able to help our customers survive. Boom. We've managed to save 40% of our overall costs immediately. So we're super agile. We know what we can save. We were always a business that really focused on sustainability. And so, long-term growth is super important rather than, growth over a short period of time. Yeah. And so we were able to change the business quite quickly. And I think I'd honestly say within 2 or 3 weeks, I kind of knew that we were relatively safe. And having that SaaS model gave us that level of protection. Many of our competitors were making money just off bookings. No bookings, no money. So, so our customers still needed to pay us whatever they did over the course of the period. So it was relatively good for us, and we were able to use that strength to help our customers.
Yeah, I really love the things you said, because all those actions just made the bond between you and your customers even stronger. That's that partnership process.
Yeah, you would have thought. Yeah. I think that we're still going through a lot of unpredictability. we're overall, we're still around 20% down on 2019 levels, but there are some markets that are booming. The USA, Australia, France, they're ahead. And there was a movement pre-COVID more on specialization. And so they didn't mind using two types of tech, one PMS, one channel manager. And now many of the smaller ones are starting to look, okay, what cost can I save? And so they're now starting to look at shaving off that cost and really focusing more on some of the connections that the PMS has already got. So we're basically, coming back to why we think we're different is that, we have all of this booking data that goes on, and we're focusing really on return on investment. So we're basically saying, look, you might have a direct connection with your PMS, but using our data, using our advanced features that the PMSs generally don't have with these channels, your €200 a month that you pay to us is easily going to be made up just through one or two extra bookings. And that's the message that we're putting out there right now. But it's going to take time to kind of educate them to come back. But things are growing again. People are happy. There's a lot more optimism in the market, which is great, and money now. So
yeah. So how do you think that the rental market will evolve over the last, let's say, next 2 or 3 years? What do you see?
Well, I think that definitely, we're seeing this convergence. I think this will continue. I think that your more traditional real estate agent or short-term rental manager will be a thing of the past. I think there will be a combination of both. They need to spread their risk over a wider area, and there's no reason why they can't do this. I think that deeper integrations between companies, there's a big ecosystem of providers within vacation rental. I suppose the difference between VR and hotels, apart from obviously the fundamental difference, is that tech adoption within vacation rental is a lot more apparent, mainly because the tech has been a little bit newer, probably. You still have a lot of hotels that are using their channel managers separately from their PMS. We're saying, look, everything goes through your PMS. But it's still quite clunky in terms of all the integrations, and it's not quite as seamless as it should be. So I think there's going to be a lot more focus on making sure that all of these companies are able to really work together, so you can have customers that can pick and choose, really have that best of breed attitude. And lastly, and this is something that we're focusing on more, is really on standardization. So the hotel sector has your OTA standards. Nothing like this exists within VR space. So every company has a different way of managing data. And so, so far we've acted like a translator from a PMS to a channel, from a property manager to a channel. What they call something is completely different to what the channel calls it, right? So we act as that filter between the two. So, we're now really starting to work on making sure that you can standardize the connections between all of these different touch points and channels and PMSs and service providers.
Okay, James. One of the questions that I ask all my guests is, what advice would you give to, let's say, new startup owners who are just looking to launch their businesses or launch their products on the market? What can you share?
I think, bootstrap for as long as you can. I think, the longer you go without funding, the better, because you'll become less reliant on the money. I think, once you go down that investment route, one, it can be very time consuming. When you're fundraising, it can take a lot of time and focus away from what you're really meant to be doing. And secondly, there's always going to be a question about dilution. with founders, right? That's going to be, especially the longer you leave it. We've been around for 7 years. So, there's always going to be that founder investment kind of conflict. I would also say, going back to listen to your customers, you got to listen to your customers. I would develop a very small range of products and just test it out on them, and talk to them continuously. Try and focus on something that is really solving an issue. If you can do that's great. So there's definitely a need, and set out some KPIs right from the start and continuously evaluate them. I think one of the best advice I've ever had was from one of our angels. He said, "Look, write down on a blackboard exactly what you're meant to be doing as a company." And that could be 5 points, it could be 10 points, and stick that blackboard behind you on the wall. And every time you've got a telephone call, every time someone talks to you and says, "Hey, look, Dorian, I've got a fantastic idea. You got to really do this." And you got to look behind you. If it's not on that board, you got to say, "Look, great idea, but let me come back to you in 6 months' time." Focus, focus, focus. It's everything. And it's so easy to deviate from what you're meant to be really focusing on.
Yeah, that is completely true. Okay, James, we've come to the end of this podcast. So let me know, what can we expect from you and your company in the next period?
A
lot of things.
Yeah. In fact, for the moment, we really are doing a lot of stuff, or at least in terms of strategy. We're really starting to think about where we're going. I think that we've not been quite ready to think about exit up until probably recently. That's probably a 3-year plan now, and at least there's a goal. Our product, from a channel management perspective, is being commoditized, as it has done in the hotel sector. What we're charging now is probably what we're charging now is definitely half of what we were charging before. And I think that's going to get low. What we need to start thinking about is, how can we become higher up in the value chain? How can we integrate ourselves deeper into the ecosystem, become a lot more of a crucial part of the ecosystem? And we are, obviously, because we generate bookings. That there's no replacing this. This is a fundamental part of how the business of the industry moves along. But certainly for us, it's definitely developing tools to help our partners help their customers. It'll be helping all of our channels get access to better quality content, better quality products to drive further conversions, and how can we further integrate ourselves into our partners.
That's great. I'm really looking forward to seeing how your company evolves. Okay, James, I really want to thank you for joining me as a guest on this podcast and sharing all of these business insights. It was really great and informational.
Great. Pleasure. Thanks a lot. Cheers, Don. Cheers.
And we are done. If you stuck with us until the end, here are a few key takeaways from this episode that I want you to remember. Number 1. Maximize the value your customers get from your product or service, and always try to create a win-win situation for both you and them. Because the more your customers grow, the more your company will grow. Number 2. For a large majority of products and companies, sales is the lifeblood and the main stream of revenue. That is why you need to invest in your sales team and your sales process early, and you also need to continuously improve upon it. And number 3, if you want your company to grow, focus on solving an issue, set up your KPIs and continuously evaluate them. Write down on a blackboard a few key points that you need to be doing as a company and fully focus on them. Now, before you sign off, don't forget to subscribe so you get notified when we publish new episodes, and leave us a review if you enjoyed this podcast and learned something new. It'll be highly appreciated. Also, if you want to be a guest on the show, shoot me an email or hit me up on LinkedIn. My contact info is down in the description. And that's it. I'm Dorian. You've been listening to Highway to Scale, and I'll see you all in the next episode.